Nelson Mandela is one of the most iconic heads of state who ever lived. His rise to fame came in the struggle of freedom and fairness in South Africa. During the 1940s, racial abuse was getting out of hand, and the black people were treated with no respect or dignity. Therefore, something had to be done, and someone had to be bold enough to stand up against the white-only government. It was clear that going down that path won't be easy, but Mandela couldn't just watch his people suffer. Mandela stood strong and his campaign began gathering momentum, making him a symbol of hope for the black community. Freedom and equity were his message, and as his people hailed him, the apartheid government had other plans for him. The government began tailing him in every way possible, and in no time, he was arrested and sentenced to life imprisonment. His life story, from a village headsman to becoming a national hero, is what makes him one of the greatest African leaders of all time. Stay tuned as we unravel the inspirational story of Nelson Mandela. Welcome to African Dream Motivation. Nelson Mandela was born on 18 July 1918 in Imvezo, Umtata, South Africa. He grew up with his two sisters in his mother's kraal in the village of Quino. At the village, cattle rearing was the main occupation of the people. As such, Mandela was a headsman, and he always led his cattle by walking several distances away from home. Both of his parents were illiterate, but his mother was a devoted Christian. Recognizing the importance of education, his mother sent him to a local Methodist school when he was about 7 years old. He was baptized as a Methodist and was given the name Nelson by his teacher. Unfortunately, his father died from an unknown ailment when Mandela was just a boy. In the absence of the breadwinner, his mother entrusted Mandela to a chief who took the responsibility of raising him. After his mother left him at the traditional palace, he didn't see her again for so many years. The chief treated him as one of his own sons, and even though Mandela's mother was never around, he was okay. He developed a great interest in African history, enjoying tales told by elderly visitors who came to the palace. This was very significant in the making of him. He grew up in wisdom and developed great leadership skills even as a young boy. Growing up in the palace gave him an exposure to the anti-imperialist ideologies that were expressed by local leaders who visited the palace. This was very instrumental in shaping him politically and physically for the task ahead. By 1933, education in South Africa was undergoing serious racial discrimination. Some schools were for whites only, while others were for blacks only. Mandela attended the largest school for black Africans in Timberland. His teacher expressed the superiority of English culture and government, but Mandela still held his interest in native African culture. He went on to do his bachelor's degree in anthropology. When Mandela completed his degree, he was so happy to return to his village. But to his surprise, an arranged marriage was waiting for him back at home. Even though this was very common in the 1940s, Mandela was strongly against the plan. On his return, he realized that he had no chance to express his opinion or reject the marriage. Therefore, he secretly escaped to Queenstown and then made it to Johannesburg in April 1941. Due to the high standard of living, Nelson Mandela needed to find a job to survive in Johannesburg. He successfully secured a job as a night watchman, but his hopes were short-lived. He was fired later on and became jobless again. He then stayed with his cousin, who introduced him to an activist by name Walter Sisulu. Walter secured a job for Mandela in a law firm. Mandela's new job opened up a whole new chapter in his life. He developed so much interest in law and began pursuing it as a career. Nelson Mandela turned to the University of Witwatersrand to master his newly discovered interest, which was law. Life on campus wasn't easy for him. He was the only black student, and racial abuses from his fellow white students became the norm of the day. His stay at the university shaped him politically, and in no time, he became an activist himself. Nelson Mandela joined the African National Congress, ANC, to fight for the rights of blacks in South Africa, which was being trampled upon by the predominant white-only government through the establishment of the apartheid system that privileges only whites. After a long struggle, the ANC was accepted by the masses, and they named Mandela as their leader. Mandela was repeatedly arrested for seditious activities and faced so many unsuccessful prosecutions and treason trials. His actions, which kept proving a great challenge for the government, led to his arrest, and he was sentenced to life imprisonment. The situation in South Africa was getting out of hand. The black community took to the streets, and was riots gradually taking over the country. Law enforcement had to be deployed, but the situation refused to be calmed. During this period, many lives were lost, and the apartheid government was under serious pressure. He served 27 years in prison and was released in 1990 by President F.W. de Klerk, who feared racial civil war and pressure from international bodies. While at prison, he saw the world differently, and for every second he spent there, his ideologies were strengthened even the more. Astonishingly, he always believed that he would one day be freed. He waited for 27 years in prison under harsh conditions before he saw the product of his faith materialize. After his release, he continued to negotiate the end of the apartheid ruling and led the ANC to victory. As president, many whites feared that his government might trigger a cause for revenge due to the ill treatment of black people over the period of apartheid ruling. But Mandela was calm and a man of peace. He put aside all the pain and united the whole country, but corrected the racial enactments and decrees which had haunted the black community for a very long time. His government welcomed all people irrespective of color or tongue. He declined a second term and was succeeded by his deputy, Thabo Mbeki. He was South Africa's first black head of state and the first to be elected in a fully representative democratic election. After his retirement from the presidency, he focused on combating poverty and HIV through his charitable Nelson Mandela Foundation and forming an alliance with influential world leaders such as Bill Gates, Kofi Annan, and many others in attempt to tackle Africa's poverty. In 2011, his health became an issue of international worry after he was hospitalized due to respiratory infections in February that year. The following 2 years saw his health problems pose huge threat to his life. He was readmitted to the hospital often due to his lung infections. His conditions remained unstable as his age advanced. On 3 December 2013, he died at his home at the age of 95. Jacob Zuma, the then sitting president, personally announced the sad news to the world on national television. It was a sad moment for the country and the world at large. 10 days was announced by the government for a national mourning of the great leader. A state funeral followed on the 15th of December that same year in his village, Kwenu. Many international representatives traveled from far and near to witness the final funeral ceremony. In South Africa, he is widely referred to as the father of the nation because his contribution to peace and stability in the country was remarkable. Up to this day, he is recognized as one of the best presidents the world had ever seen. He was a man who was put in prison for 27 years. He came out of prison and was at peace with his oppressors. For the sake of the continuity of his country, he swallowed the pain and sadness to move forward and unite the people of South Africa. He declined power and resigned as president after leading the country for just one term. This is a true son of Africa. His humility alone was beyond understanding, and everything he did was to the betterment of Mother Africa. His selflessness, forgiving heart, and loving kindness shall never be forgotten. By far, Nelson Mandela is one of the greatest African leaders of all time. Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, kindly like, subscribe, and click on the notification bell so that you don't miss any new video we upload.